If life is a stage and we're all actors, who's the genius director behind this chaotic improv show we're living in? Hey everyone, welcome to Crazy Questions, the podcast where we ask the questions that will make you pause, reflect, and maybe even squirm a little. I'm your host, Soulful, and today's crazy question is, who are you pretending to be? Now, before you get defensive and say this podcast isn't for me, hear me out. We all pretend every single day of our lives. And maybe you're pretending to be confident when you're full of doubt. Maybe I'm pretending to have it all together when in reality, I feel I can barely hold on. And let's be real, pretending isn't always bad. Sometimes it's quite necessary. I remember hearing as a child, you fake it until you make it, and believe you me, that's been a mantra of my life, even in front of our own mirrors. But here's the real question. Are you pretending as a tool to grow, or are you pretending as a way to hide? Because there's a difference. If you're showing up as the confident version of yourself so you can step into the confidence for real, then that's growth, right? But if you're wearing a mask so thick that you don't even recognize yourself anymore, that's a warning sign. So perhaps take a second and ask yourself, who am I pretending to be today? And more importantly, why? Are you trying to evolve, or are you just trying to survive? Growing up, I lived in the country in a tiny island, and I could tell you, pretense was my world. I would go down to the rivers and I would be Aquaman. I would be Shira up in the mountains. I would be a G.I. Joe soldier, running around the fields. And that was the best part of growing up, the innocence of my pretense. However, I became an adult and I saw the pretense in the adults, and that scared me. But then I realized I was also that person. I remember one day looking at a political, and now we're in the climate we're in, so a political party, and I realized when campaign season is in session, it's full of grand promises. But once people are elected, the priorities shift, and many of these pledges quietly just disappear. Not all politicians are pretenders or fake, but the political game rewards performance, and I realized the best ones, they know how to balance authenticity with strategies. And the ones who are just pretenders, they just keep on pretending. And it's the same in the religious sector, which is like any institution. I remember one year I was watching on TV a pastor refusing to open his doors to displaced people during a storm. And all I thought is, he pretended so very well to be morally superior. And when it came down to actually being real and honest, he couldn't. Then I started asking myself questions like, why do we pretend on a daily, especially if we know it's gonna hurt someone else? I don't know. Humans pretend, I assume, well, I know for myself, for most of the time it's for survival. From an evolutionary standpoint, pretending, whether it's masking my emotions or faking a confidence or playing a role, it helped me to navigate through social structures. It helped me to avoid conflicts, and I somehow fit into a world that I didn't even think in the moment that I would have fit in. But beyond survival, another reason I think we pretend is social acceptance. We want to belong, whether it's acting interested in a conversation I had no need to be in, or dressing a certain way just to fit in for the moment, or pretending to agree with a group just so that I can be a part of it for whatever reason I wanted. And then there's self-preservation. We pretend we're fine when we're not. And that's such a disservice to ourselves. But nothing is harder than the emotional protection. Pretending, for me, at one stage of my life, it was my defense mechanism. It was acting indifferent when I actually cared, but I had to survive, because emotionally that situation was killing me. But the worst of worst is manipulation. There is something off when pretending isn't innocent. Some people pretend to be kind, to be honest, just to gain control over others, and that's the worst, I think. But I'll leave you with this. The version of you that you're pretending to be, do you actually want to become them? And if not, maybe it's time to take off the mask. Because what's the point of pretending if nobody even knows who you are? If this hit home for you, share it with someone who might need to hear it also. And I'm going to say this. You can pretend, but maybe pretend to be you all the time. And keep questioning, keep growing. I'll see you next time. I'm your host, Soulful, and peace.